The CNN debate studio in Atlanta crackled with an electric tension, the kind that made the air heavy and alive, as if the polished modern set itself was a conduit for what was to come. The harsh overhead lights cut through the dimness, spotlighting the two figures seated opposite each other. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the vibrant congresswoman from New York, known around the nation simply as AOC, and Karoline Leavitt, former New Hampshire representative and rising force in Republican politics. AOC at 36 was a firebrand whose energy seemed to pulse through every inch of the room. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back, and her signature red blazer was a vivid slash of color against the neutral backdrop, a visual declaration of courage and unwavering conviction. Known as a social media titan, every word she uttered had the power to mobilize activists and stir the national discourse. Facing her was Karoline Leavitt, poised with a calm assurance belying her years in politics. In a tailored navy suit, she radiated a cool, measured confidence, someone who had weathered rough political storms and emerged resilient. Leavitt was known for balancing sharp political instincts with a clear-eyed pragmatism. A politician who prioritized economic stability and job security alongside environmental stewardship. Her presence was a counterweight to AOC's combustible passion. Around them sat an audience of journalists, strategists, and everyday Americans, all meshed in a thick web of anticipation and silent expectation. Anderson Cooper, the debate's moderator, stepped forward to the podium, his silver hair catching the bright lights, his voice steady and tempered with the weight of the occasion. Good evening and welcome to tonight's CNN debate. We come together to confront one of the defining issues for our country: how to bridge the urgent need for sustainable energy solutions while maintaining the economic backbone that powers America. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Ms. Leavitt, thank you both for being here. He turned first toward AOC. Congresswoman, your backing of the Green New Deal and advocacy for a swift renewable shift has been clear and forceful. Critics say your plan risks economic disruption and imperils millions of jobs in sectors like oil and gas. How do you respond to those concerns? AOC's posture was forward, her hands resting lightly on the table. Anderson, the question isn't, can we afford to act? It's, can we afford not to? Climate change is not a distant specter. It's burning our forests, flooding our shores, and costing lives. Now, my plan goes beyond reducing emissions. It's about building millions of union jobs, creating resilient infrastructure, and assuring that in this transition not one person is left behind. The cost of inaction is far, far greater. Destroyed homes, wrecked livelihoods, displaced communities. That is the true price. Younger audience members nodded in resonance while others exchanged murmurs of skepticism. Her gaze locked onto Leavitt's, a quiet but fiery challenge. Cooper turned to Karoline Leavitt for her reply. Leavitt straightened, a faint but confident smile tugging at her lips. Her voice, marked by a slight New England inflection, was calm and deliberate. Anderson, I respect Congresswoman's passion, but let's speak plainly. Energy isn't some abstract ideal. It's how families put food on the table. Oil, geese, manufacturing. They employ hundreds of thousands, supporting real people with real bills. You can't just flip a switch and expect life to go on uninterrupted. Renewables have a role, no question. But what we need is a thoughtful, pragmatic bridge to a cleaner future, not a wrecking ball that it leaves workers behind. The room responded with polite but firm applause, many appreciating Leavitt's grounded message. AOC's reply was sharp but measured, voice gaining a touch of controlled fire. Miss Leavitt, that mindset has kept us chained to fossil fuels for too long. We cannot stay paralyzed while the globe heats up. The Green New Deal isn't wishful thinking. It's a clear path forward to solar, wind, geothermal, and retraining programs that don't abandon workers but lift them together. Leavitt nodded thoughtfully before responding with level-headed reason. Congresswoman, I've seen countless blueprints that look good on paper, but crumble when families lose their footing. People who've spent decades in these industries want assurance, not broken promises or government programs that never deliver. They want respect for their way of life and security for their families. Her calm but firm tone resonated as applause. rippled through the room. AOC's eyes sparkled with a playful edge. This isn't about government programs. It's about opportunity. Hesitate now and those jobs vanish anyway as the world moves on. We're fighting for those families, their kids, and their futures. Cooper then presented a hard-hitting question. So how do your policies reflect the needs of working-class Americans, those who face the brunt of pollution, economic uncertainty, and environmental disasters? AOC's voice climbed with urgency. Climate impacts hit low-income, rural, and minority communities hardest in places like the Bronx, where I grew up. My plan focuses investments there, not just coastal elites. This is about justice, equity, and creating good-paying union jobs in those very neighborhoods. Leavitt inclined her head slightly, eyes sharp. Justice is a powerful word, Congresswoman. But justice doesn't pay the rent or fuel a truck. People need solutions that are immediate and practical, not lofty ideals they can't wait for while struggling to survive. The air grew taut until AOC leaned in with a pointed remark. Miss Leavitt, your approach belongs to a fading era. Maybe it's time new leadership took the wheel. The audience gasped softly, sensing the moment veering from policy to personal. Leavitt's gaze sparkled mischievously as she replied evenly, "Before I answer, Congresswoman." But AOC cut her off with a smirk. "Sit down, Barbie," she snapped, the phrase bursting out sharp and dripping with condescension. The studio plunged into stunned silence, disbelief hanging heavy as Cooper froze mid-note. The audience gasped quietly, some exchanging wide-eyed looks. In control rooms and living rooms, across the nation, social media exploded with shock and debate over the phrase. Leavitt sat unmoved, hands calmly folded, eyes steady and resolved as she regarded AOC. After a breathless pause, her voice was deliberate and unflinching. "Congresswoman, I've heard a lot in my years in politics, but never that. Leadership isn't who shouts the loudest or trends the most. It's who listens to the people who keep this country going, who chooses facts over fire, respect over insults." The room murmured with approval, a shift in energy palpable. Leavitt's refusal to rise to the bait unsettled AOC and set a new tone for the debate. The debate's intensity only grew as Anderson Cooper steered the conversation back to the heart of the matter. The immediate consequences of their proposed energy policies on everyday Americans. "Congresswoman Ms. Leavitt," Cooper said, his voice steady but sharp. Critics argue that energy debates often overlook the human cost. The job losses in fossil fuel regions and looming economic hardship for working-class families. How do you ensure your policies address these real concerns? AOC's eyes narrowed. With focus, voice rising with resolute passion. That's exactly why we need to change. Climate change doesn't hit everybody equally. Low-income families, communities of color, rural towns, they bear the brunt of pollution and disasters. My plan puts these communities first, funding clean energy projects in places like the Bronx and Appalachia, not just affluent coastal cities. It's about justice, real, tangible justice, not just abstract economics. Leavitt's expression remained calm but serious, tilting her head as she replied, "Justice is a powerful concept, Congresswoman. But in my experience, justice doesn't pay the rent for a single mother in Manchester or put food on the table for hardworking families in Concord. People need solutions they can count on today, not promises for a distant future. We need plans grounded in reality that protect jobs while moving forward." AOC's patience showed signs of fraying. Miss Leavitt, defending the status quo is no longer an option. This country's future depends on bold change. The Green New Deal isn't about loss. It's about opportunity, good, union jobs, retraining, infrastructure investments. We are fighting for those workers, not against them. Leavitt nodded slowly but firmly. "Congresswoman, I don't deny change is necessary, but change without a plan is chaos. I've met men and women who have dedicated decades to exhausting, dangerous work in oil fields and refineries. The backbone of families who worry their livelihoods will disappear overnight. Nobody wants to be left behind or tossed aside for a wishful dream." The audience murmured appreciatively as Leavitt's tone struck a chord with many listeners. Cooper pressed further. Miss Leavitt, can you give us specific examples of how this pragmatic bridge works? What are the tangible benefits for workers in the fossil fuel sector during this transition? Leavitt squared her shoulders. Absolutely. In states like New Hampshire and across the heartland, we're already seeing renewable projects paired with existing industries. Take carbon capture initiatives that reduce emissions without shuttering plants overnight. Wind power utilizes local workers who understand the energy grid. It's about leveraging strengths, not abandoning reality. People like Maria, a single mom from rural New Hampshire who's worked in energy for 15 years, can see a future that includes stable jobs, not uncertainty. AOC leaned forward, voice steady but edged with urgency. But Miss Leavitt, the clock is ticking. The climate is not waiting on slow progress. Hurricanes, wildfires, flooding, these are everyday realities for many Americans. If we cling to fossil fuels out of the convenience, we're condemning entire communities. My plan prioritizes retraining programs so workers like Maria aren't left scrambling. This is a fight for survival and justice. Leavitt's eyes showed respect, but her tone remained unwavering. And I respect that urgency, Congresswoman. But I also respect the people whose lives depend on jobs that exist today, who can't afford to lose their paychecks tomorrow for a promise that may or may not arrive. It's a balancing act. Progress with protection, innovation without abandonment. Then came the pivotal moment. AOC, sensing the crowd's shifting energy, launched a sharp challenge. Miss Leavitt, maybe it's time for voices that understand the urgency to take the reins. The old guard's time is fading. The room tensed as Leavitt coolly met the barb. Congresswoman, leadership is tested by how you lift up every American, not how loudly you shout or how clever your quips are. Before Leavitt could continue, OC smirked and snapped, "Sit down, Barbie." The explosive words sliced through the room, hush descending instantly. Eyes widened, breaths caught. Anderson Cooper paused, pen frozen. Social media erupted in seconds. Leavitt remained composed, unfazed. After a pregnant pause, she replied softly yet firmly. Barbie or not, I stand for results that real people can depend on. Leadership is respect, not ridicule. It's listening, not insults. The subtle power shift stunned the audience. Leavitt's calm defiance struck a new chord. The stage was set for a battle not just of policies but of character. As Cooper attempted to refocus the debate, Leavitt's response had already reshaped the night's dynamic. Anderson Cooper cleared his throat, steering the debate back onto policy ground amid the charged atmosphere. Governor Leavitt, let's focus on your vision for energy policy. Texas, New Hampshire, and many other states rely heavily on oil and gas. How do you envision a practical transition that protects jobs but addresses climate concerns? Leavitt adjusted her blazer, her voice steady and confident. Anderson, the path forward isn't a leap into the unknown. It's a bridge built on experience and realistic solutions. States like New Hampshire are investing in carbon capture and renewables while supporting traditional energy sectors. We're pioneering initiatives that reduce emissions without sacrificing economic security. She paused, then added, I've met workers like Maria, single moms working on rigs or in refineries supporting families and paying bills. For them, a promise of retraining years from now isn't enough. They need viable employment options today alongside genuine investment in new technology. AOC responded promptly, her tone passionate but measured. Miss Leavitt, I understand those concerns deeply, but clinging to the past won't save those families. It will risk their futures. My plan doesn't abandon workers. It invests in them with apprenticeship programs, infrastructure projects, and renewable job creation. It's about justice, clean air, and good-paying jobs? Leavitt nodded, acknowledging the point before shifting to the real politic. Congresswoman, I hear those ideals, but reality bites hard when billions and trillions are thrown around without clear funding sources. How do you justify a $50 to $90 trillion plan to everyday Americans worried about keeping their homes and health insurance? How do you tell a refinery worker in Manchester his job is gone with a vague promise that someday something else might appear? The room murmured in agreement, some faces showing sober nods. OCC's gaze sharpened, a hint of defiance flashing. That figure includes more than just energy transformation. It counts social programs, too. Independent analyses show long-term savings from avoiding catastrophic climate damage. This isn't a gamble, it's an investment in survival. Leavitt's reply was calm but pointed. Survival means balancing hope with facts. The key is ensuring no one is left stranded in the transition. Too often, grand plans gloss over the lives disrupted along the way. That's why Texas and other states are leading with pragmatic approaches. Wind and solar integrated smartly with gas to keep the grid reliable and prices affordable. She added sharply, China's rush to coal plants shows what happens when you prioritize speed over stability. Europe's sky-high energy bills warn us what happens without balance. We must learn from those lessons. AOC shot back, raising her voice. Slightly, Governor Leavitt, our refusal to lead means falling behind. Other nations invest in the future while we defend industry driving climate disasters, hurricanes, droughts, wildfires. This isn't political, it's science, and the science is clear. Leavitt's face remained composed, but her voice took on a steely edge. Science is vital, Congresswoman, but so is feasibility. We're leading in wind power, yes, in carbon capture projects are expanding here. The difference is we're doing it in a way that sustains workers and communities, not throwing them under the bus for political points. The tension peaked when AOC took a final jab. Maybe it's time the ones stuck in the past stepped aside. New leadership is needed, not just louder rhetoric. Leavitt's smile was tight but genuine. Leadership isn't about outshining opponents or viral moments. It's about respect, listening, and delivering real results for families who depend on these jobs. Then came the moment the night's tension crystallized. AOC leaned in, eyes flashing with daring, and said with deliberate scorn, "Sit down, Barbie." The words exploded across the studio once again, charged, biting, unforgettable. The silence that followed was thick. The audience caught between shock and anticipation. Cooper's pen froze mid-air. Social media ignited anew. Leavitt, unshaken, met the verbal slash with impeccable poise. After a few heartbeats, her voice rose clear and steady. Congresswoman, insults don't build bridges. Real leadership listens and responds with respect, not mockery. My challenge to you is to lead with facts and empathy, not zingers. The audience murmured, the energy shifting palpably as Leavitt reclaimed control. AOC's smirk faltered briefly. A crack in the facade. Cooper quickly brought the focus back to policy, but the electric charge of that exchange lingered, promising an evening that would be remembered not just for the issues debated, but for the way character and composure anchored the discourse. The debate had entered its final stretch, but the energy in the studio remained electric. Anderson Cooper refocused the discussion, guiding it toward one of the biggest challenges facing energy policy: the financial and social realities of transitioning away from fossil fuels. Ms. Leavitt, Cooper asked, "You've highlighted the importance of steady jobs and economic stability, but critics say the cost of your more cautious approach could delay urgent climate action and deepen inequalities. How do you respond to those concerns?" Leavitt folded her hands calmly, her tone measured but firm. "Anderson, urgent doesn't mean reckless. We need to be smart about how change happens. Sudden disruptions hurt people. Workers in towns that rely on oil and WH families who are already struggling. We must invest in new technology and infrastructure, yes, but with a plan that safeguards families every step of the way." She paused, then added with conviction, "In New Hampshire and across the country, local renewable projects are creating good jobs. Today, we're seeing carbon capture efforts. Wind farms employing locals and private-public partnerships. This is how progress happens, real results, not just promises." AOC leaned forward, voice intense with urgency. "Miss Leavitt, I hear you. But the science makes it clear we don't have years to keep building bridges. The climate crisis demands swift action, bold investment, and justice. My plan targets those on the front lines, low-income communities, frontline workers, people hit hardest by pollution and extreme weather. The Green New Deal isn't a handout, it's a lifeline. Leavitt met her gaze steadily. No one disagrees that climate change is an emergency. What we differ on is how to respond without leaving people behind in the rush. I respect your passion, Congresswoman, but passion needs prudence. The transition must be just and achievable. The audience was visibly divided, some nodding vigorously to AOC's call to action, others appreciating Leavitt's call for careful balance. Cooper shifted gears toward funding and logistics. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, your critics point to the high costs estimates between $50 trillion and $90 trillion over the next decade. Where will the money come from? And how do you maintain fiscal responsibility? AOC's reply was fast and direct. We'll pay for this by closing corporate loopholes, taxing excessive wealth, and ending subsidies to fossil fuel companies that have long profited at the planet's expense. This is an investment that saves us from far greater costs. Climate disasters, healthcare crisis, lost productivity. It's an economic necessity, Leavitt countered. Voice calm but pointed. Those figures are staggering. And while I support investing in renewables, the real world is more complicated. Many federal retraining programs have success rates below 40%. That means 6 out of 10 workers are left without real support. That's the human cost of an unrealistic timeline. We need solutions that work today, not hopeful forecasts. The debate's tension surged as AOC's eyes flashed with resolve. Governor Leavitt, hope is what gets us through crisis. We can and must do better. Clean energy boss are growing, and my plan guarantees investments in those communities most in need. If we don't act, the future we leave is one of choke points, disasters, and inequality. Leavitt's voice softened briefly, but remained firm. I want the same future, Congresswoman, but I also want a future where workers aren't left behind, where families aren't made to choose between breathing clean air and putting food on the table. Texas, New Hampshire, all our states, they're showing the way with balanced progress. It's a difficult path, but it's the one that lasts. Cooper then pointedly asked, Miss Leavitt, can you name specific projects or job programs in the pipeline that workers can join in the next 6 months? Leavitt smiled slightly. Certainly. Wind farms expanding in the Midwest and Northeast are hiring. Now carbon capture facilities along the Gulf Coast are growing. Refineries are adding safety and efficiency upgrades while creating jobs. This isn't theory, it's action happening today. AOC's expression hardened in response. Working on isn't hiring, Miss Leavitt. Millions need job security now, not pie-by-in-the-sky promises. Training programs must be immediate and accessible, or you leave vulnerable families behind. The studio said with anticipation, opinions split. Social media buzzed even louder. Cooper concluded sternly, Thank you both. The stakes are high and the nation is watching. As the debate waned, both women exchanged a look, a tacit acknowledgement of the debate, yet a shared recognition that the challenges ahead demand more than rhetoric. The tension in the studio reached a crescendo as the final minutes of the debate approached. Anderson Cooper leaned in, his tone gravely serious. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Governor Leavitt, the country is watching closely. Beyond energy policy, this has become a broader fight over leadership, values, and the future America you each envision. What final message do you have for Americans worried about jobs, the environment, and unity? AOC took a breath and straightened her posture, voice steady but compassionate. Tonight shows how much people care about their families, their futures, their planet. My vision is clear. To build a nation where no one gets left behind, where climate action creates opportunity and fairness. We face immense challenges, but we must act boldly and inclusively, investing in workers, communities, and clean energy. This isn't just politics, it's survival. Her words earned respectful applause, though some faces in the crowd showed lingering doubt. Leavitt smiled gently, her tone warm but resolute as she addressed the camera directly speaking to millions. At home, folks, leadership means listening, balancing passion with pragmatism. I believe we can power America safely and sustainably by using all our resources wisely. oil, renewables, and by protecting jobs and families along the way, politics should unite, not divide. And true progress comes through respect, dialogue, and common ground. We owe it to every American to get this right. The audience responded with a mix of applause and thoughtful silence. The room electric with the weight of the night's exchanges. Anderson Cooper closed the debate with a nod. Thank you, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Governor Leavitt, for a spirited and insightful discussion. And thank you to our audience for joining us in confronting these critical issues. As the cameras cut, an unexpected yet genuine moment unfolded off stage. AOC approached Leavitt and extended her hand. Governor, we disagree, but I respect your dedication. Leavitt shook her hand firmly and smiled back. Congresswoman, keep fighting for what you believe in. Just remember, the best leadership listens as much as it leads. This candid exchange caught on air sent a ripple through social media, inspiring hopes for civility amid division. The CNN studio lights dimmed as the night ended, the debate having ignited a broader conversation about balancing urgency and pragmatism, passion and facts. The nation remained divided, but the call for dialogue and respect reverberated loudly. The atmosphere in the CNN studio had shifted to one of tense anticipation as Anderson Cooper swung forward to wrap up what had been a night of fierce debate, candid exchanges in moments that had already gone viral. He looked carefully between the two women before him, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the passionate voice for urgent climate action, and Karoline Leavitt, the poised advocate for pragmatic, balanced progress. Thank you both for an engaging and substantive discussion. Cooper began. The topics we covered tonight, energy policy, economic security, climate justice, aren't just abstract issues. They impact millions of Americans' daily lives. Before we close, I'd like to ask each of you for a final thought. What is your vision for America's future on these critical issues? And how do you propose we come together as a nation? AOC inhaled, deeply studying herself, then spoke with measured conviction. Tonight was a reminder that millions of people are scared, but also desperate for change. Our planet is on a precipice, and the costs of inaction are mounting not just in dollars, but in shattered lives and lost futures. My vision is of a just transition, one that leaves no worker or community behind while aggressively ending pollution and investing in clean, good-paying jobs. This isn't about political theater or empty promises. It is a moral imperative rooted in fairness and survival. We need bold leadership. Leadership that listens to science, to workers, to those who have been ignored for too long. Only with urgency and unity can we build a thriving future for all. Her gaze swept across the audience, her voice resonating with a mix of passion and hope. AOC's words drew applause from supporters and even reflective nods from some skeptics who saw the weight behind her fire. Karoline Leavitt rose next, her expression calm but resolute. She addressed the viewers directly, her tone a blend of warmth and steady pragmatism. This debate highlights what America needs most right now: balance. Yes, climate change demands urgent action, but that action must be realistic and inclusive. Millions of hardworking Americans, oil workers, engineers, small business owners depend on jobs that fuel our economy. Our approach must protect those families while embracing innovation. We can harness all our resources, oil, gas, wind, solar, carbon capture, to power the nation sustainably and affordably. Leadership means speaking truth, delivering results, and building bridges across divides, not fueling fiery divisions. I believe in an America where progress respects people's lives and livelihoods. Together, we can meet this challenge with respect, determination, and practical solutions. Her words earned warm applause, particularly from voters who longed for unity and a measured path forward. Leavitt's calm assurance tempered the night's high emotions and offered a hopeful tone of collaboration. Anderson Cooper nodded appreciatively, signaling the close of the formal debate. But then, as the camera still rolled and the studio lights shone, an unexpected moment unfolded. A brief but genuine exchange that captured the complexity and humanity behind the heated political theater. AOC stood and approached Leavitt, extending a hand in a gesture of respect. Governor, we see the issues from different sides, but I respect your dedication to these important conversations. Leavitt smiled warmly and returned the handshake firmly. Congresswoman, continuing this dialogue, listening as much as speaking, is how true progress happens. I hope we can build on tonight's conversation with mutual respect and a shared goal of lifting all Americans. The studio audience gave a brief, appreciative ovation. Social media instantly buzzed as the unguarded moment of civility was shared, widely inspiring many who had grown weary of polarized politics. As the final credits rolled on the broadcast, commentators and viewers alike reflected on the evening's lessons. The viral sit-down Barbie moment had exploded across platforms, but it was Karoline Leavitt's composed and grounded response that had shifted the narrative. Her refusal to escalate personal attacks and her focus on facts and empathy resonated deeply. The debate embodied the nation's struggle, balancing the urgent demands of climate action with the economic realities faced by millions, navigating the passionate calls for justice alongside calls for steady, inclusive progress. For countless Americans tuning in, the night offered pause and reflection, not simply on policy details, but on the qualities of leadership America desperately needs: empath,